Hello, hi everybody. Welcome to Autumn Horizons. Good evening, good afternoon for our East Coast people. Thanks for joining in your evening. So we want to thank everyone for joining our Autumnites. Those who are new to Autumn on YouTube, or on Facebook, LinkedIn, however you find us. Thanks for joining. We look forward to having a great discussion with you guys today. And right now, I'm going to share. If you have any comments, the comment box is a great place to start. You can go ahead and drop your post, questions, comments, anything like that in the chat box, and we will answer them live. So, without further ado, I think everybody's seen my face probably a gazillion times by now. My name is, for those who haven't met yet, my name is Issa White. I am the program director with Autumn. Been working with Autumn for a little bit now, for about, I don't know, since the inception. And honestly, I'm here to make sure that all of our Autumites and all of our attendees and anything that's dealing with any external programming is running smoothly behind the scenes. And so, as you know, the reason why we're joining today, it's a couple of reasons. We want to make sure that the representation in the Black and Hispanic community, the underlying force that why we have Autumn is being represented well, not only at the employer level, at the employee level, but also on the leadership level. And so, as you know, this is a huge issue within the tech community, and events like this are meant to expose you, they're meant to encourage you and educate you about different opportunities in the tech space. And so we're bringing on Ralph and Shivani today because we want to go through their storyline. We want to understand kind of where they started, how they got into tech, whether if it's the quote unquote traditional route, or if it's by way of exposure, or just happenstance, or just change of interest. We want to make sure that we're sharing all these storylines and making sure that you know that these are attainable positions, and that there is a space for you in the tech industry. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in, and I would like to introduce Ralph and Shivani. First, we have Ralph. So Ralph, how are you doing?
I'm doing outstanding. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for joining us. So, Ralph, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, I would definitely like to hop into the questions, but I want to give this time you chance to say hi to our audience.
Well, first of all, thanks for having us. Thanks for having us as part of Slalom. We love to have this opportunity to chat a little bit about our individual experiences in technology. My name's Ralph Coleman. I'm originally from Washington, D.C., the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. I've been in Austin now for about 15 years. My wife and I decided to move to Austin, several years ago, 15 years ago, because we were both working in technology in the DC market, but needed a quality of life change as we were starting our family. And so it was an opportunity for me here at Dell, locally in the Austin market. And so went to work at Dell for several years, and then in the DC market, I worked for Booz Allen Hamilton, but knew I always wanted to go back into consulting and, business strategy. And then a lot of business strategy consulting evolves into technology solutions for those types of problems that we're trying to solve. So there's always this technology element to it. And so worked at Dell for several years, decided to go back into consulting, went to work for a company called Protiviti, and did a bunch of different projects across the US, decided I didn't want to travel anymore. As my kids were getting older, and then found an opportunity at Slalom and joined Slalom basically about 11 months ago. And it's been a fantastic experience so far. We're experiencing tremendous growth here in the Austin market, doing all kinds of transformational type projects for our clients here in the Austin market. And they always revolve around people, process, and the technology element. And so that's what I'm passionate about. That's what I love. I love large transformational projects. That's been my experience. And with any large transformational project, there's got to be some technology element to it. And that's my background. But I can go into more detail as there's questions that come about. But that's my story as to where I'm at today.
Awesome. And so before you even got into Booz Allen and before you started Dell, what was, I guess, the educational background? What really got you started before you started with Booz Allen Hamilton?
So I was a political science major in college, and then I quickly realized when I got out of school, like it's very difficult to find a job being a political science major. And so I actually went and worked overseas in Ecuador for a couple of years and was in the Peace Corps. Came back and then got a master's degree in finance and economics. And so when I got that master's degree in finance and economics, that provided some opportunities within the consulting space at Booz Allen. Was recruited
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I started my consulting career at Booz Allen, having had a degree in political science, and
Mm-hmm.
that evolved up into a master's degree in finance and economics.
Wow. And so essentially your studies in school, like I said, you realized, you had an interest and you're like, okay, what actually is like more, not the word realistic, but what can we actually, pivot off of? And so your time is spent in Ecuador. Is that when you realized that you were more interested in finance, or how did you kind of pivot over to that side of the industry?
Yeah, so when I was in Ecuador, I quickly realized that there was a global mindset around the business opportunities, and so it
Mm-hmm.
was increasing trade, increasing the global element of our economic engine. There's a
Mm-hmm.
global economy that's driving that, right? And so that was my first exposure. And so I came back and from Ecuador and said, I want to do finance, I want to do accounting, and that's kind of what that opportunity overseas is what opened up that my eyes and the
Mm-hmm.
opportunities. And so, and then that opportunity presented itself, and then got the master's degree. And that just opened up a tremendous amount of opportunities at Booz Allen that I can go into in more detail if time permits.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, actually, that's the opposite of me. When I was in school, and I realized finance and accounting is not my thing. If I do one more level of intermediate accounting, I'm going to quit all of this. So, no, but that's really that's a tell sign. I'm glad you had a chance to really expand your knowledge while you're away, like in Ecuador. And then essentially when you started working with Booz Allen, which is a cool fun fact about Booz Allen Hampton. Do you want to share with everybody about the word booze, how we got the word booze?
Oh, you might have to share that fun fact because I'm not even
Okay.
sure I know.
I was applying for Booz Allen Hamilton one time and they showed us with this, but the last name Booze, the reason why we say booze now for liquor, it has to do with last name Booze. Um, the last name being Booze, one of the consultants that started that company. So that's what they told us. It's stuck with me since then. I just call it Booze now, but it's Booz Allen Hamilton. But anyways, in terms of, like you said, moving into finance, and then obviously finance, and said large transformative projects, and how that obviously includes technology. Was there any a time where, like, I guess a time where you were like, maybe I really want to focus in one particular area of tech, or was it I want to stick to like the consulting side and really to kind of dabble into all the different areas of tech? Has that ever kind of crossed your mind in terms of like changing careers again?
Yeah, so I'll tell you about a story. I mean, so it was actually when I moved to Austin and started working at Dell, and
Mm-hmm.
I had an opportunity to run a consolidation of accounts payable functions in Panama,
Mm-hmm.
and that opportunity itself actually opened up additional opportunities where I was able to deliver that project. And they said, "Hey, Ralph, we want tap me on the shoulder and said, hey, we want you to deliver this global project around consolidating basically 7 inventory systems." The way Dell grew up was by geography, by South America, the United States,
Mm-hmm.
Asia, Europe, and so the systems, the infrastructure around that was also kind of globally dispersed. But we were in this move of like, how do we reduce costs? How do we increase efficiencies? How do we increase the effectiveness of our ability to deliver? And so they asked me to run a program around consolidating all of their inventory systems into one. And so this
Mm-hmm.
was my opportunity to do a couple of things. One, it was a total process improvement type project because we wanted to standardize the processes that were driving the way that Dell managed inventory, number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, they wanted to build a single system of record that allowed us to consolidate that activity. It's very difficult to reconcile your inventory valuation when you're managing it in multiple systems. And so consolidating all that activity in one system was the
Mm-hmm.
project they asked me to go and lead. So that required not only kind of running multiple workshops that allowed me to kind of facilitate, a standard process for how we're going to manage and value inventory, number one. Number two, allowed me the opportunity to partner with our with Dell's IT shop. I had an IT program manager that I worked in partnership with, and this was around developing requirements, functional capabilities of what this single system of record should deliver. And the third piece was allowed me the opportunity to partner with my IT colleague to really negotiate and manage the relationship with an outside vendor. And so this was really about vendor management and making sure that they were bringing the total capability of that software platform that allowed us to actually implement that single system of record for inventory and cost management. So it was a huge opportunity, right? And so my counsel to folks all the time has been like, hey, when you get tapped on the shoulder, when you deliver good value and you deliver good work and you get tapped on the shoulder to go do something bigger and better, that's an awesome opportunity, because you'll, number one, it's a recognition of the value that you're delivering. And number two, you take these stretch roles that allow you to continue to develop your skills and develop and expose you to new opportunities. And so that's one of the things I always encourage folks to do, is when you get tapped on that shoulder to kind of run a program or to do something different that maybe you're like, I'm not so sure I'm capable of doing that. Be open to those stretch roles, because you'll be surprised what you can actually, you'll scale yourself up to be able to deliver and to develop new skills.
I see. Definitely. And also taking on those extra goals, like you said, can add to your skills, and you can speak toward them in another instance, if, it caters itself to that, right? There can be a whole nother opportunity that you might be closing yourself off on just by not taking that extra role, they're taking that extra job. So I definitely agree with that. And that can go across the board with anything, any industry, any job, any, honestly, opportunity in your life, right? So I agree with that. And so what about, when it comes to, people who are interested in your career path, how would you go about explaining, I know you have a myriad of things you could share in terms of, win stories, experiences, but like, what's the main thing that you would want to share with somebody who, they're learning about what consulting is, for one, that's a broad spectrum. And then two, they're learning, okay, well, how do I even attack that? How do I get into it? What would you share? And how would you position that opportunity to that person?
I think one thing you always kind of have to do is you have to kind of realize what you're good at, right? What am I good at doing, right? So that's one. And I know it seems rather simplistic, but it is kind of like a ticket to entry for me. It's like, what am I good at? What do I excel at? And I think if you can kind of get your head wrapped around that, that becomes really important, because then the second piece is, what are you passionate about? Like, if you're passionate about something, like I joke with my wife all the time, I'm passionate. A part of my career was a volunteer firefighter when I was in Maryland, and I was just absolutely passionate about it. And when you're passionate about it, there's a level of energy and excitement that's wrapped around the work that you're doing, to the point where it doesn't become work anymore, right? I just love doing this work. So in my counsel to folks is like, find something that you're passionate about, find something that you're good at. And if it's connected to technology, that's even better, right? Because we know that that could be even better if that's something that you're passionate about, because then you will always find something to anchor your experiences around that can continue to drive those types of opportunities as they present themselves.
Gotcha. And I just want to touch on that volunteer firefighter. Wait a minute. That's a huge passion. No, that's awesome. This is sidebar, but I think everybody wants to ask, like, were you given like certain assignments, or are you going in like just like everybody else in terms of these, assignments or the emergencies?
Oh yeah, I mean, this was like fully trained. People always ask that question. You really ran into burning buildings? And the question is yes. So fully trained, certified, etc. Correct.
Wow, that is awesome. Thank you for your service. I mean, we need more people volunteering, but that's a huge commitment. But that's awesome. So yeah, definitely thank you. No, you covered a lot of information here. I'm looking at the comments here. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. If you have any questions, make sure you drop them off in the chat, okay? Don't be shy. We're not going to call you out, but we will put your questions on the board to share them. So other than that, in terms of, okay, that's a good question. Thanks, Sterling. Good question. How long did it take to get certified? Is this for the firefighter, or is this for one of his roles in tech? Let's see if you could clarify.
I could even just talk about two certifications. Okay. So
that's fine.
I'll talk about it. I don't know if it's really a technology certification, but I am PMP certified, and that was actually one of the interesting things when I was at Booz Allen. It was to get PMP certified. So that was years ago, but that was probably, I don't know, The requirements I know have evolved over time, but certainly PMP certified. And as for the firefighter stuff, it's like
Uh-huh.
it just depends on what level you want to get to, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty passionate about it, and so there was certain levels of certification that I wanted to get, and it really doesn't take too much time. It's just a matter of the time and the
Mm-hmm.
commitment, the
Mm-hmm.
investment. So, roughly speaking, initially to be able to go into a burning building, it's 6 month course, and then you
Uh-huh.
continue to scale, and as there's additional courses that you want to go and additional skills you want to obtain.
Okay. And he says both. He put in the chat. Thanks for spelling. Because actually, there are some people that are on this call, or sorry, I'm so used to Zoom calls. There are actually people on our conversation today that are looking to become more project management, focused. Some are focusing on PMP. I forget the acronym for the other one that's similar to PMP, but they're starting off with their project management certificates. Some of them actually maybe already started the process. Some of them are new to the process. Is there anything you'd like to share about what really, I guess, got you going to complete that certification? And then when you're completing it, what were you looking to apply it towards?
Yeah, so when I was at Booz Allen, I was running projects, right? And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did as a value proposition, because when you affix the PMP to your name, right? It helps the company acquire new business, right? And so making sure that I think it's important to make sure that you have you recognize these certifications and you pursue those certifications. So that's one thing, and then secondly, it's from a certification standpoint, like
Mm-hmm.
even more recently, right? I was exposed to some robotic process software automation type certifications, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you think about RPA, which is a total technology driven solutions through software.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's vendors. Blue Prism is a really good platform that helps automate processes, and so those are certifications that I would argue that are, to me, make sense. Anything that is kind of affixed to machine learning, artificial intelligence. How do you take kind of these complex processes and
Mm-hmm.
put some automation around them so that you can deliver incremental value? So thinking about what the business cases of those types of certifications, what can they do to accrue
Mm-hmm.
incremental value, for whether it's for you personally, whether it's for your brand, or whether it's for the company that you work with. So certain companies will actually pay you money for you to go and get those certifications. And so my
Mm-hmm.
counsel has always been, hey, seek out those opportunities for those types of certifications, because
Mm-hmm.
they will accrue value for your career as you continue to move forward.
Definitely. Thanks for highlighting that. And I hope everyone else taking notes. I know you have the certificates we can get through Autumn, but it's also great if you're already employed to definitely check out those opportunities to get reimbursed for any courses or any certifications that you can take, because obviously companies going to want you to use that knowledge towards what you're doing there at the job. So I would definitely seek out those opportunities. And last question, why did you join Autumn's Horizons event today as a speaker? Is there anything else special you want to share with our Autumites and our guests?
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you. I'm really passionate about kind of this space that Autumn is attempting to address. Right, when I
Mm-hmm.
was, I'll just tell a quick story at Dell. And when I worked at Dell, I was in the finance function,
Mm-hmm.
and there were challenges with seeing people of color kind of move up the hierarchy within the management ranks at Dell. And so one of the things that we did was we put together what we called it a finance task force. And what we were trying to uncover were basically three things that we thought were critical for professional development for people of color, for anybody for that matter. One is, number one, number one is you have to have people that are behind you. So who are those mentors? Who are those advocates, right? And I really like telling this story because I think it resonates in so many different ways, right? So
Mm-hmm.
advocacy and mentorship is really critical from my point of view in terms of continual professional development. You've got
Mm-hmm.
to figure out who are those relationships that you need to establish. Who are those folks you need to establish those relationships with, and how can they help you? One, be a mentor, and then hopefully the relationship develops significantly enough where it becomes someone that's willing to advocate on your behalf. Number one. Number two is, how do we get exposure to those stretch roles, right? You want to be in a position where you're demonstrating value. So when you get tapped on the shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
you're getting tapped on the shoulder to lead those cool opportunities, those cool stretch jobs that really
Mhm.
continue to open up even more opportunities for you. So in my mind, it's always important to be able to do that. And then the third piece is typically around the recruiting element, right? So where are we recruiting, finance people in the future, right? So really having a concerted effort of really attending recruiting functions where people of color are actually attending, whether that is, from a finance function, whether it was the Black Association of Accountants
Mhm.
or the Black MBA group. And so
Banana.
we made our leadership team within the finance function really take a disciplined effort around those three areas to try to
Mhm.
drive and add, to the pipeline of those, people of color that could actually, scale into those management roles, and had the
Mhm.
commitment of the CFO to be able to drive that through the organization. And so that's why I'm passionate about what Autumn is doing, because I think there's a similar approach that can be applied within the technology space within Austin.
Mhm.
And I think it's something that we've seen that has actually paid dividends. And so that's
Mhm.
why I'm passionate, want to experience and want to share my story, because hopefully it may spark an interest in someone. And if that's happened, it's been successful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anthony. Does anybody have any questions for Ralph while we are focusing on his career and his experience? If not, don't worry. It will be another chance for you to ask a question. But I'm going to now bring on Shivani. Thank you, Ralph. And we are going to move on over to your experience. And so, would you like to go ahead and say a little couple of things before we get into our questions to our audience?
Sure, Isa, sure.
Oh, 1 minute. There we go.
I am Shivani Kumar, also at Slalom with Ralph. I'm a part of the data and analytics team here. I'm a leader on the team. Been with Slalom for a little over 1 year. In this image here, you see me with my husband, my 2-year-old niece, and her favorite person, or yeah, pet in the whole wide world. So yeah, that's me and the little family.
Where were you in this
Uh,
picture?
this was in California. We went to Pinnacles National Park.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it was, yeah, a couple of months ago now, pretty recent.
Awesome. So yeah, so essentially, we wanted to get a little bit to know about, your progression into the tech space. You can start where you education wise, how far you want to go
Sure.
back, but essentially want to learn kind of how you move down this line of, companies or organizations into slalom. And if that has been a traditional route or non-traditional, you can explain kind of what that means to you there.
For sure, yeah. So I grew up in India most of my childhood, and my undergrad was back there. That's where the whole journey with technology started as well.
Mm-hmm.
And back home, a lot of things are, I had a very few options from a career perspective. It was either
Mm-hmm.
doctor, or you don't know biology so well, let's have you get into the technology world. There were
Mm-hmm.
pretty limited options. Technologies, yeah, what I went with.
Mm-hmm.
uh, my first job was with this company called Infosys, and then I worked with Dell in India.
Okay.
uh, yeah, it's a interesting case, right? I was working with Dell back in India with a lot of people here in Round Rock, Austin, and that's where I
Uh-huh.
happened to be 10 years later. uh, and I moved to the US, ESA, to do my master's. I went
Okay.
to Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon University,
Uh-huh.
and I specifically did this course there called MIS.
Oh,
It's a,
information systems.
yes, okay,
Uh-huh. Yes.
so yeah, that's an interesting course. I mean, a lot of colleges here offer it right now for anyone who wants to go to a business school and learn some technology at the same time. While at it, you can do courses from both of them. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'd worked for a while already, this seemed like a good progression. So that's where I was for 1 year. Then I have been with two consulting firms in the US since then. I was with PwC first,
Mm-hmm.
spent a lot of time traveling. Like Ralph was saying, I mean, I lived out of a suitcase. Like I would just come home for laundry every weekend. Didn't work out well. And yeah, slalom happened at the right time. So been here and love working and love doing what I'm doing here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, outside of my day-to-day being in the data and analytics world at Slalom, I'm also leading the inclusion, diversity, and equity efforts for our market in Austin.
Awesome.
That's been very rewarding as well.
Hmm.
Uh, Sorry, did I answer your question?
No, yeah, you did. I actually have a couple of
Okay,
questions from the things you
sure.
mentioned. First question is what's probably the your favorite trip that you've taken, on the clock with either PwC or with Infosys?
Favorite trip. So I was working in Denver for a
Denver's cool.
year, so that was
Hmm.
beautiful. I mean, just renting, like driving from the
Hmm.
airport to my client office with seeing mountains, Snow Peak
The
mountains on
mountains.
your
Hmm.
drive. Yeah, I would stay back a couple of weekends, walk around. So yeah, that
Denver,
was
that's
beautiful.
cool. Denver,
Yeah,
Boulder's cool too. For those who haven't been to Denver, you got to go to Boulder
yeah,
specifically.
yeah.
Yes, but
That's pretty.
and then my second question was about your the DEI or diversity, equity, inclusion, or inclusion, diversity, equity, however you decide to put it in the order. Being the lead, what was I guess the name of the organization, and then I guess from my understanding with DEI, it covers the protected groups, so like it covers the race, covers identity, gender, disability, veteran. Which group were you leading?
Sure, great question. So think of the group I am leading as an umbrella for a lot of the groups you mentioned. So we have multiple employee resource groups within Slalom.
Mm-hmm.
So we very closely work with women in tech, women leadership networks. So I'm very actively involved there.
Mm-hmm.
We have another community for the LGBTQ plus community as well. So we call that group Prism.
Mm-hmm.
So there are many other such ERGs within the company. Again, depending on what you relate to the most or which community you feel more closely knit to, there are
Mm-hmm.
opportunities for all of our employees to get involved, support as needed. Outside of that, there are you know a lot of sessions, just informative awareness
Mm-hmm.
meetings as well that we do on an ongoing basis, where we all just get together, check in on each other, how things are going. I mean, this year has been different for a lot of reasons for a
Yeah.
lot of us.
Mm-hmm.
So every couple of weeks, couple of months, we just check in, how everyone's doing. Are you all feeling supported? Is there anything else we can do? Yeah, that's
And like Ralph, how you mentioned there was certification that he was able to obtain and get reimbursed through his company. Were there any programs that you participated that were similar to that setup with either PwC, Infosys, or Dell, or even Slalom?
sure. Yeah, I really like how we have it right now. I mean, I'm not biased also because I'm here at Slalom. There are a
Mm-hmm.
lot of certifications and opportunities for us to grow, especially right now. I mean, because I am more closely in the data and analytics world, I can really speak
Mm-hmm.
to some of the tools and technologies that we are getting trained in. We
Mm-hmm.
are making sure, for example, in Austin right now, we are seeing a lot of smaller companies move in, a lot of smaller tech companies. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely a lot of cloud technologies are good to be certified in. If I have to name a few,
Mm-hmm.
AWS is on top of the list. There is Azure, there is GCP, Google Cloud Platform. So definitely, if you're interested, there are specific tracks within each of these. You don't have to learn everything at once. You can start small, start crawling, get the basics, knowledge, basic certifications that will help you talk about the tool, talk about the technology, and then you can always progress along the way.
We have a question here from
Sure.
Kara, and I apologize if I'm not saying your name correctly, if it's Kara or Kara. But she asked, "What companies do you look at to get training from if your organization isn't sponsoring it?" So, Kara, I'm making sure I understand your question correctly. Are you saying that if the organization that you're participating in doesn't either have the course that you're looking for, you're asking if what companies might sponsor you instead? You can put your follow up comment or question in the chat. But Shivani, do you have a
Sure.
way to answer that question?
Yeah, I think there are definitely a lot of tools, resources available out there which do not come at a cost.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, again, on the data side of things, there are, courses available on Coursera. A lot of times, depending on the time of the year, a lot of companies have discounts or,
Mhm.
things available at a reduced price. I don't know, Kara, if that was your question, if there are resources which are available for free before, you get certified or trained, that's
Mhm.
definitely out there. And
Mhm.
sometimes for me, I mean, I just go onto YouTube also, or just Google,
Yeah.
like, hey, where do I get the best deal to learn this XYZ technology or tool, or,
Mhm.
if there are recommendations already out there from other people who have done it, that's a good starting point. Yeah.
Mhm. And I can even add, thanks for your question, Kara. I can even add in, I'm going to bring up Mia's question here in a second. A lot of times, so if you want to like rank certification, certificates, badges, all of that, I know it's a good place to start like with a badge. So LinkedIn has badges. There's other badges you can get on some of your other social sites as well that are more like career related. And then you have your certificates, and then you have your certifications, and you have licenses. And so if you look at it that way, I think a good way to start, and y'all you can chime in on this, Shivani, is to
Sure.
like maybe do a badge, because it might obviously the increase of the I guess the impact that those different options have, the more time you spend on each one. So you could get a badge, maybe in a couple of hours, depending on what the content is. Maybe like on a LinkedIn Learning, or maybe Microsoft or somebody else might offer you one if you have one of their products. You can start there and decide if that's something you really want to invest your time in, and then gradually build on to that. Because, like I said, you don't want to look back and say, "Well, dang, I want to do UX design, but I spent all my time on data analytics." They
Right.
can marry each other and merge each other in a little bit, if you want to go the extreme of that, but at the end of the day, when you're trying to focus on an area, it's good to kind of gradually move into that space, unless you've already invested time doing that.
For sure.
Mia asks, oh, sorry, wrong one, Mia. She asks, what are the average costs to complete IT certifications?
Hmm.
And IT certifications, Mia, if you could put in the chat, you could specify maybe a specific area of IT that you're looking to learn more about. We can probably narrow our answer down a little bit more. But if you want to speak on, Shivani, if any
Sure.
certifications you received, maybe the average, cost that you were looking at, and maybe which certifications those
Yeah.
apply to.
Yeah. This is, yeah, broad questions, but I mean, definitely there are, depending on, your motivation to get certified, how much time you are willing to invest. There are definitely, different routes you can take.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen certifications. Again, I don't want to name a specific tool or technology, but there are certifications available for under $150,
Mm-hmm.
under $100, depending on what level of skill set you're looking for. At the same time, there are expensive ones on the other end of the spectrum as well. So definitely comes back to why you're looking to get certified. Is it a
Mm-hmm.
job? Is it just understanding, just figuring out, hey, is this something I want to spend more time on? So
Mm-hmm.
once you have the motivation, cleared out, and then once you know how much time you're willing to invest, there are a handful of technology related certifications that will really need a lot of time invested. So, depending on where you are, what you're looking for, there are several such certifications available.
Mm-hmm.
I recently did a few in AWS and a few in Snowflake. They were all,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I think, around like the 250, 300 range.
Yeah,
So it
300
totally
sounds about.
depends. Yeah, it totally depends on the tool and what exactly you're looking for.
It also depends on how you go about obtaining it. So some of you are already enrolled into some of our courses, or may have been enrolled into a course before you joined Autumn that may had um, a course and then the certification. A lot of time the cost is really tied to the exam, because that's how you get your certification. And how you go about getting that knowledge could vary, and there are many amount of
Yeah.
ways. Like she said, from YouTube videos to taking a more structured course, or a self-guided course, however that applies to you. But definitely for those who don't know, Autumn has a number of cohorts that results in certificates and or certifications. So if you're interested in those, we'll definitely be sharing how to get in contact with Autumn at the end. But I want to bring the focus back a little bit back to Slalom. There was a good question I saw here in the chat from JB. Where was that?
I see a
Um,
couple of
from here we go.
questions.
What skills and experiences have helped you most as consultant?
Great question. So over time, I mean, since I've started, definitely the kind of skills needed, required have changed. But
Mm-hmm.
underlying, I think just uh, the solving skill set, right? Like just having a clear idea of, okay, what problem are you trying to solve for, and then
Mm-hmm.
working with the people aspect of it as well. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, because we're consultants, our primary consumer or the people we interact with are, you know, clients from different mindsets, different walks of their career. Some of them could be more on the business side of things, some of them could be more technology. So just
Mm-hmm.
figuring out how to best speak that language, work with them, understand where they are, understand how you are adding value. So that has significantly helped. And analytical mindset as well, not just because I'm doing data and analytics, but in
Mm-hmm.
general. I think that's really something that's been a key to work together with people, resolve problems. Yeah, this has been some of the key ones. But I don't know, Ralph, if you would like to add anything else, I'm sure you have a lot of wisdom to share as well.
And I have one more question. I have actually a
Okay,
data analytics question for you.
sure.
And then I have a couple of questions on my own. From Eli, we have, do you have suggestions for tasks or projects related to data analytics that can help someone get more involved in the field? Thanks, Eli.
Sure. So Eli,
Or Elijah,
over
actually.
so suggestions on tasks or projects.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. So when it comes to data, there are multiple. If I can assume, I think your question is more around if I want to make career in that world, where do I start, or you know, what tasks or what specific projects should I get involved in? So overall, like on the data and analytics side of things, you can start as with something as simple as being a data analyst, and
Mm-hmm.
that is a lot of times a stepping stone for, you know, people to get into data and do other things. And as part of it, it could be something like, you know, just looking at an Excel spreadsheet, looking at the data, you know, with a lot of columns, a lot of rows.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do I make sense of it? How do I explain this to someone who just has a minute? I have a lot of data in front of me, a lot of raw information. How do I make sense of it? What, you know, specific quantifiable things are there? What are the different dimensions I can talk, I mean, explain the data better in? And if that could be a starting point, and then eventually, you know, if that is something that's working well, you could be like, okay, this is really interesting, I want to spend more time. You can spend time on a visualization tool. There are a lot of data visualization tools out there.
Mm-hmm.
There's some, so you can spend time there and see if that's an area of interest, that's something you want to spend time on. That is, so this is the front end part of data, like, you know, when you're actually working with the data and building some insights or data driven uh, information out of it. The other aspect of it is also called data engineering, where you
Mm-hmm.
are working on building that data set. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for someone in the tail end who's a data analyst, they're looking at data which looks, you know, cleanly modified, perfect for them to do analysis on. There
Mm-hmm.
is one step behind where you want to actually go in and, you know, see, work with the data in the back end. So that's the data engineering aspect of things. And there
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of tools and technologies involved there. Right now, there are I mean, again, I don't want to get into the tools, but I'm just trying to on a high level explain. So that's the data engineering aspect of things. And now there is a data science that's also really big. People are investing time on, you know, not just analyzing data, but how do I forecast, right? Like today we figured
Mm-hmm.
out something is working really well. Like, how do we continue to make that happen? What else can we do differently? If we change a trigger, what happens? So there is the whole data science component of things as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then with a lot of companies lately, especially as they're growing, as they have so much more data to work with, there is a governance in play, right? Like, how do we make sure our people understand the data that's already out there? How do we make sure people know what a specific term means? How do we get to a unified language of a terminology around data? So there are
Mm-hmm.
several different aspects to it. So like, uh, I guess if you want to understand, like maybe spend a little time across each, and then, you know, over time you'll feel like, hey, this is something I'm really enjoying. This is something I want to spend more time on.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be one route to take. And always talk to people. I think that's what definitely helped me a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
Reach out to people, you know, who are doing this, who have done this for a while. Get
Mm-hmm.
their experiences, see if that's something you want to be doing. Hey, you're doing a data science project, what does it mean, what exactly are you solving for, what problem is it? So that helps a lot as well, just talking to people in different areas and seeing how their experience in this industry has been.
You know, and I think it'd be a good idea if you came back and did like a day in the life of a data analyst, so we can start getting into those
For
nitty
sure.
gritty details of data analytics. I even have questions on my own, but I know in the sake of time, we might not get to all of those. But data analytics could touch on anything from like business intelligence all the way to data science. And so I think that's a very good conversation. I think we should come back and have. But thanks for sharing your question, Eli. A couple of the questions I had before we hop back into. I have a good surprise for everybody when it comes to slalom. But I wanted to just really touch on, in terms of your overall experience. I know moving from India to the States, and then continue your career there. Was there any point where, same thing when I was asking Ralph, where you were thinking about maybe changing your career, or maybe diving deeper into another area of tech that might have affected your career to this day?
Changing my career, I think that has happened a handful of times. In fact, every year I take a step back sometimes and you know ask myself, hey, am I having
What's
fun,
next?
am I yeah, is this something I want to do? Because I think I've read this somewhere, and someone has told me this in the past as well. I mean, if it starts feeling stressful, that's not where you want to be. I mean, that's definitely not your passion either. So if you're continuing to work long and still enjoy it, that's
Mhm.
definitely a place for you to be. So I have had that thought a couple of times in the past, but I think I'm in a good place now. Definitely want to continue being in data analytics.
Mhm.
uh, the other part of your question is what has been challenging. I think
Mhm.
challenging and fun at the same time. It's been just to keep up, because there's so much that keeps changing on the technology side of things. You're constantly, catching up. Something new has come. Like, there's
Mhm.
something in the data science world. There's a new
Mhm.
technology. There's a new tool. So catching up has been challenging. But at the end of the day, if you're someone who loves being challenged, who likes new things, so it's been
Mhm.
fun as well at the same time.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, you can never stay caught up with technology unless you're the one making it, honestly. So, I
Very
think if anybody
true.
has an iPhone, they know exactly what I'm talking about. So, but no, thanks for that. I agree with your answer. Definitely with the stress part. If it starts to become more of a hassle or a chore, and you're not getting that fun, that jolt of energy that wakes you up in the morning anymore, it's probably a good time to reconsider, or maybe even adjusting what is you're actually doing. Yeah, that's a very
Right.
good point. And then the last question I want to touch on: what brought you to Horizons today to speak and share your experience with us?
Yeah, a couple of things. So I think it was late last year. There was a session that Austin Forum had organized, and I
Mm-hmm.
had an opportunity to hear Michael Ward Jr. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it was about equity in technology. How do you do it with technology? So it was a very interesting conversation. There was a Q&A after. So I heard a lot about autumn then. So definitely wanted to, come back. I mean, just reach out and do something. I have been guilty of not doing it for so long, but yeah, you'll hear from Chelsea soon. So she got us all
Mm-hmm.
connected, and yeah, this just
Uh-huh.
worked out. Yeah.
Shh, don't spoil that part yet. No,
Oops.
no, I really appreciate
Oops.
your time, and then thanks for hopping on. And then, like I said, I definitely want to bring you back because we have a lot of data analytics questions out there that we definitely want to get answered. Um, let's see. I'm checking the chat before we hop on over to the next portion here. Let's see. Skills. I think we covered. Let's see. One more check. I think Eli's second question was maybe it was had to do with the projects. But what we're gonna do, Eli, we're gonna bring Shivani and Ralph back here on the second half. I want to make sure we give Chelsea, our third speaker, our slalom colleague today, the chance to talk. So thanks, Shivani. Shivani, I'm gonna move you off and give you a break, and we're gonna bring on Chelsea. Hey, how you doing?
Hello.
So yes, so last but not least, everyone, we are bringing on Chelsea Holmquist.
You really built up that surprise.
Right, Right, because we want to make sure at the end of the day, the
Yeah.
point of Horizons is exposure and, sharing more opportunities that are out there by listening to people who had, maybe like I said, the traditional or maybe the non-traditional route in tech, but still after that conversation, okay, then let's act on it. What can we do now? And so I think it's a good time to bring you on and share about the different opportunities that are open at Slalom right now. So I definitely want to give you a chance to share a little bit about yourself,
Yeah.
and then we can get on to the roles that you want to share.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thank you so much for letting me the last part of this and just pop
Yes.
on and share my background. So really fast, I've been with Slalom for about 8 years now and loved just my journey within the company, but moved down to Austin about 3 years ago after starting my career up in Minneapolis. And so I'm a
Mhm.
Midwest at heart person and I'm enjoying not having winter anymore. So just the climate change in itself is
Kind
amazing.
of, sort of. We're gonna have a little bit. We're gonna see.
I don't know. Yeah, someone was like, prepare for winter. I was like, no, we're good. We are good in Austin. But what really brought me down here was the opportunity to help build and launch a brand new market. So we expanded into Austin about 3 years ago, and I just couldn't pass up the opportunity to be entrepreneurial and kind of in a startup environment and build something in a community like Austin that just felt like it was waiting for something like Slalom. So but a little bit about me outside of slalom and maybe recruiting is I, love to check out new restaurants, music, the very Austin thing to do. You'll see a
Mhm.
picture of my dog, constantly just probably a big dog mom at dog parks, walking, hiking, all of that. And so, but at the end of the day, my passion is people, and which is why I love being here and being able to share just knowledge and experience around networking, connecting, resume building, anything having to do with our people.
No, that's awesome. And I think, like I said, bringing you on to this portion can not only give us some action items, but kind of, a lot of people look at a recruiter as just like, okay, that's just a person with a job. We want to make sure we're adding the human aspect, because at the end of the day, getting a job is a very much human interaction or a human involved, transaction, if you will. And so we definitely want to make sure everyone is staying connected with Slalom, staying connected with Shivani and Ralph. But also, like I said, there are posts on our job board, on the autumn job board with the Slalom positions. And I want to give Chelsea this time to speak on those open positions, as well as give us a little bit more intel about Slalom, the company itself.
Yeah. Slalom as a whole, really high level. So we're a global consulting firm with a local model. That makes us super unique. As Shivani said, a lot of people in consulting live out of suitcases and at times really wanted to find a solution to being a part of their community. And that's what Slalom can offer. We have 40 locations. Austin is one of them. So all three of us who are here are in Austin. We're local. Love the city, but we also have a lot more opportunity across Slalom. So I don't want to forget that piece of it. We do anything from strategy, technology, transformation, and all of that in between. And so I know the roles posted are probably a blend of each of those. But in Austin, we are growing and we are growing fast. And so really excited about the opportunity locally.
And so, with the roles that you post on our job board, is there anything special you want to share about those positions, or any like maybe just tidbits about those positions that are being offered right now?
Yeah, high level, what I would say is we're curious and interested in people who want to either transition into consulting or are maybe earlier in their career and are just excited about getting into consulting and learning technology. So overall, just would love to connect and network and figure out kind of where the right opportunities exist. I always like to say the best way of hiring people is find the best people and create the role for them. So don't necessarily take yourself out if you don't meet all the qualifications either.
And what I would do as a quick tutorial for those who have not been to our website yet, I want to definitely share how to get to our website, or how to get to the job post, right? So this is our homepage. Welcome to Autumn's homepage. Under resources, you have then the job board right here, right? So I'm already logged in, but you would create a login, and these are the positions that are under Slalom. Go ahead, and we have about a few pages on here, so you can go ahead and scroll through our positions. Just keep on scrolling. But I definitely want to share that is exactly where you would access the job board. like I said, if you do not have a profile already, you would it would prompt you to create a profile, which is just your name, your contact information. You'll also be opted in. You can select to opt into the newsletter, which is a very resourceful tool as well. But that is where you would access our job board. So go ahead and check it out there. We would definitely put the link to our homepage in the chat. But now I would like to bring back everyone so we can go ahead and have another round robin of questions. If I've missed anything, any other questions in the chat that you would like to share at this time? This is a great time to ask about slalom, ask Ralph, ask Shivani about their careers and their past. But if you have any questions, this is a great time. Anything about Autumn, I'm here too. I think I saw Ralph moving in the background a little bit when we started talking about what other kind of projects you participate in that would make you stand out. Did you have any comments about that question, Ralph, or maybe an experience that you had?
About projects that stand out to me?
Projects, or I know we talked about taking the extra project and kind of double down into that question. But is there any other, whether it's a project or a certification or certificate, that maybe like a win story you had that made you like stand out specifically while maneuvering through your other companies outside of slalom, or just through your career in general?
Yeah. I think it's important to kind of think always. I think it's always important for all of us to kind of always kind of recalibrate where you are in your career. Like, what are your aspirations? What are your goals? And what are the skills you need to kind of accomplish those goals? And so my point of view is that there's a constant need for constant kind of, hey, what are my professional development goals? What do I really want to accomplish? I know I kind of do that on an annual basis to really kind of make sure that I'm staying on track. And so, I mean, I think constantly doing that is important. And I think it even came up in the context. I was even thinking about that in the context of the certifications, right? I think it always ties back to, it may be simplistic, but what do I want to do in the next 2 years, the next 3 years, where do I see myself and how do I get there? And part of that is just kind of being self-disciplined and trying to figure out and being, disciplined and putting that down on paper, trying to figure out, articulating what that is to yourself. So then you can start mapping those certifications, opportunities to, because those are part of the action items that get you to where you want to go.
I agree. Do all three of you have mentors or anybody that you go to as your career mom or your career dad to kind of like vocalize those ideas or those goals that you're looking at?
Yes, I mean, I can go first. I definitely have, many mentors within slalom and outside as well. I mean, I'm still in, connection with people from, my previous job and just otherwise as well. I mean, I would really suggest find as many, people to talk to, connect with, people who look like you, people who are different, just to be able to get everyone's perspective, experiences. That's been very helpful for me a lot of times, just having that sounding board, reaffirming, confirming, hey, this is what I'm thinking for myself for this year. What would you do? How do you feel? Do you have any recommendations? So that's been really helpful.
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% spot on. I think that I'm still in contact with people that I worked with 15 years ago. We're not even the same company, may not even be in the same city, but we still connect, whether it's twice a year. I mean, it's so that's my how I would encourage people to do is like, maintain those relationships as you continue to progress in your career.
And are they different? Met because you're a mentor.
I'm sorry?
We met because of your mentor.
That's right.
See, you never know who you don't know, right?
My mentee. That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
I actually met one of my mentors actually at an autumn event. Oh, this is maybe like 3 years back in Austin, and she was actually an attendee, and I was moderating, and she was an attendee. Now, who would have thought that would happen that way? But we got to talking, and she became one of my mentors. And so, yes, it helps to have people that, like you said, you don't know, people outside of your demographic or your comfort zone, essentially, to kind of get that objective view. Also, in the terms of the topic that you're discussing, in autumn, we have an occupational mentor, and then you have your life coach, career coach mentor. And those are two different topics because you'll have somebody that you can match it with. If I want to be a data analyst, I need to talk to somebody who has experience in that area. But on the life coach, career coach side, that person may not have the expertise in data analytics, but they have good sound advice and they have good, lived experience on moving, transitioning careers or networking effectively, and meeting different people outside of their circles, and really can pass on the same knowledge and information on, to the next person. So I definitely vouch for having a mentor, having different types. And so I really appreciate all of you joining us. Is there any last things you want to leave with us today?
If I
Regarding
could, I think
slalom
Chelsea
or
brought up a good point, right? And
okay.
her point was, it's around mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to know that mentorship is just not about mentoring, having someone that's more senior to you that's mentoring you, but mentoring is 360 degrees, right? You can have mentors that are junior to you. And so my recommendation to be open to those types of mentorships, because you never know. I always joke with some people that work for me, is like, one day it would be awesome if I worked for you, right? Because if you see that much capability in their skills, that's completely feasible. So the mentorship is a 360 degree is a 360 degree process.
What about a sponsor? Do you have any sponsors? And then if you do, could you let us know what the difference between your mentorship relationship and your sponsorship relationship with that person?
The key difference that I would articulate, someone that's mentorship to me is kind of like coaching, guidance. Sponsorship means the relationship is significant enough and they know the quality of the work that I deliver, that when the going gets tough and there's decisions around things like whether it's promotion or whether it's bonus, and they put their badge on the table and they go to bat for you, like that's the difference in terms of a sponsor, right? And so I think understanding the difference between the two and how do you take a mentor and convert them into a sponsor or an advocate, it takes more time, it takes more investment in that relationship to get them to a sponsor or an advocate. So
because they're putting their name on the line too.
Correct.
Right. That is definitely, and I'm like, how do we end on that point? Because a lot of times, we stop at the mentorship, but it's also good while you're transitioning your different careers, while you're moving into different spaces of tech or whatever that might mean for you. You need to have these people in your corner, as well as making sure you're maintaining those, relationships. You don't want it to be transactional. That's not fair on either side. It needs to be something that's natural. You can have goals, but it needs to be naturally, in terms of the way you facilitate and how you have those conversations. But yeah, the mentorship piece is definitely something that, outside of, exposing yourself to events or exposing yourself to opportunities, you can take all that back and have a conversation with your mentor and really map out what that means in your career. So I definitely thank all of you for joining us. On the screen here, we have all of the LinkedIn addresses. I put them in the chat as we were going through our conversation. But if you missed those and you want to go ahead and circle back, as I mentioned to all my Automites, y'all know this, and I'll say it again, all of our participants, even people in the audience, but all of our guests, all of our speakers, all of our panelists, they all are expecting, to hear from our Automites. So if you say, hey, what you said about mentorship, Ralph, that really resonated with me. I attended the event for AUTM Horizons. He'll know you were here and have an easy conversation. So, go ahead and use this time and use this warm lead or handoff. And if you want to speak on data analytics, if you want to learn about, Ralph's career and his travels, and even learn about Ecuador, I don't know, whatever stuck to you, this is a perfect time to do that. And this is the purpose of our Horizons events, is to expose you to these different type of positions and expose you to these different career paths that might resonate with you. So with that said, I was promised to share information about AUTM. Join our website, join AUTM if you are new to the space. We definitely have a lot of news on our newsletter that's very informative and engaging. If you want to reach out to us directly, have any questions, our email address is there as well. And of course, the website that I showed to go ahead and hop on that job board to start applying for those roles that Chelsea posted for us. You can access it on our AUTM, AUTMTX.org for our website. And social media, obviously. That's how you got here. So thanks for joining us, everybody. This has been a very awesome event. Thanks for all your questions and comments. We look forward to you joining the next event. And if you have, any questions or comments, reach out to us directly, okay? I'll have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.